Hello class, this is your first studio lesson for Begin Again, and today we're going to talk about Pysanka, eggs, and dye. So your core information, our content is fertility. The who we're speaking about are peasants. The what, Pysanka, which is the beautiful egg that you see on the right. The location, Eastern Europe, is where this craft started. The time period, 1313, is when the egg was recognized as an official symbol of Easter by the Catholic Church. The why, it's for fertility, and the how, it is dyed and inked. Pysanka are the traditional decorated eggs created in Eastern Europe, and they were given as gifts at Easter time, and they were symbols of fertility. So the traditional method of creating Pysanka is used by using hot wax and dye, and the wax is heated, and there is a special tool that has a very narrow funnel at the end that you use to draw on the egg with the wax. And what you do is, the first thing you do is the areas that you want to stay white, you draw that on with wax, and then you dye your egg in the lightest color. And then the areas that you want to stay that color, you draw over that with wax, and then you dip it in the next color, and you just keep repeating that process. When you have all of your colors, then the egg is heated and the wax is wiped off. So for an example, an egg like you see over here on the right, that would have to go through the process 6 times before it was finished. This is very time consuming, and it's difficult because the wax cools and you have to kind of remember where things go. So when we're talking about the symbols, the designs on traditional Pysanka are symbols that have to do with things like nature, fertility, love, religion, and family. They're simple designs that are repeated to create an overall complex pattern, and can also include simple drawings of flowers, leaves, and animals. So for example, the egg that you see here, it looks very complicated, but when you break it down, it's really not. For example, take this area right here. You have red triangles that repeat in a line with red triangles repeating right above them. And between those, you have a diamond shape that is covered with a yellow grid. Right above that, you have a white line with little black squares on it. And then you have some green triangles that are outlined in yellow, which is outlined in red, which is outlined in yellow, which is outlined in green, with little yellow lines. All of those things are really easy and something that anybody can do, but when you put them together, it creates something really complicated and beautiful looking. So these are examples of traditional Pysanka designs for you to look at and kind of break them down. Over here you have a design that is based on the bee, which is another symbol of fertility, and in the middle you see a bee skip. You have a star design and another star design. Again, if you study these, they look very complicated, but when you break them down, they're pretty simple. These are a little bit more complex. The deer, again, it's not a realistic deer, it's a stylized symbolic deer. And then you have 2 with flowers and leaves. This one is just geometrics in kind of more natural colors. In the middle, you have geese with flowers and little grains of corn. That's what those things are. And some leaves. They're corn stalks. And on the right, you have fish and waves. If you see the fish, this is its face. There's his eye, body, scales, and his little tail. So our method, we're not using the hot wax because that is difficult and time consuming and hot wax. So we're adapting it. You are going to dye your eggs a base color. then you're drawing your designs on and tracing in black marker, and then you can add color with paint, which is optional if you have it at home or if you are here at school. They still turn out great. These are some from actually many years ago that we did in class for this lesson, and you can see that there are some sort of traditional designs, and there's the rabbit and a moon and a few other things. So your studio prompt, you have to create 1 to 3 Pacenka style eggs. You can use either blown real eggs or artificial eggs. The artificial eggs though have to be of a specific type. If you are face-to-face at school for your studio, you will use artificial eggs. If you are at home, use real blown eggs, or let me know if you need the right kind of artificial eggs. The egg must be dyed and inked with a traditional design, and you must turn in at least one perfect egg for the summative studio. You may make additional eggs for additional credit. So more is more, always. So today we are going to prepare eggs and dye them. If you have fresh eggs and you're working at home, what you need to have are several fresh eggs, a cup, a sharp of some sort, which could be an unbent paperclip or a nail or a T-pen. You need some water and vinegar and paper towels. And so the directions are for blowing the egg. So for step 1, you're going to use your sharp to gently drill a hole in both ends of the egg. So here I'm using an unbent paperclip, and I put a hole in this end, then I'm going to turn it over and put a hole in the opposite end. The trick is, don't try to stab it. That's not going to work. You need to hold it tightly against the egg and twist it and drill it, and then it will go in. So the next thing you need to do is put the unbent paperclip, or you could use a toothpick or anything that's very narrow and long enough, put it in the egg and kind of stir it around, because the egg has lots of membranes that hold it together, and those need to break. After you do that, you're going to hold your egg over the cup. You're going to blow through the narrow end of the egg, and the egg will come out the other end. This will take a little while. It's kind of fun and funny and gross all at the same time. You can then, if you want to cook your egg, if you've been, careful with it, you can do that, or you can throw it away, or you can feed it to your dog, or what have you. You want to have more than one egg because sometimes they break. And here's a picture of how to blow. You see the person is blowing in one end, and the egg stuff is coming out of the other end into a bowl. After your egg is blown, you need to clean it because eggs are greasy and your hands are greasy. So you need to rinse your egg with water, and then you put the egg in a vinegar bath. So just basically mix vinegar and water and wash it around in there to remove the grease. Dry it with a paper towel and place it into a safe place. When you add the vinegar and water and the egg together, you might end up with these kind of bubble-looking things. That's not soap in the picture. What that is sometimes if you have some of the egg white and stuff with the water and the vinegar, it kind of foams up. If you're using artificial eggs, don't use the plastic eggs that you can pull in half. There is a special kind of artificial eggs. Walmart has them. They're pure white. They come in an egg carton. They're back with the Easter stuff. At the Burgaw Walmart, they're in the Easter stuff against the far end of the aisle on the bottom shelf. They come in a dozen to a carton. They are $2. If you need some and can't get there, let me know. So what you do is start off by putting a little vinegar on a paper towel and just kind of rub it over the egg. If you don't have vinegar, you could use hand sanitizer as well. You just need some sort of acid because that helps your dye stick to the egg a little bit better. If you try to use plastic eggs, it doesn't work because dye doesn't stick to plastic. So what is dye? Dye is dry pigment that is mixed straight with water. The difference between dye and paint will sit on top of a surface, and dye sinks into a surface. So that is why if you are dyeing hard-boiled eggs and you peel your egg, if the egg has cracks in it, then the hard-boiled egg itself might be different colors. If you paint something, though, it would just be on the shell. Dye is also how clothes work. So please be careful because egg dye can also dye your clothes. So I'm going to tell you a couple different ways to dye eggs. If you're at home, you can use commercial egg dye. It's available right now. Just get the plain. Don't get any of the fancy stuff. Paz is usually available. It's like $1, and it comes with these little tablets that you dissolve in water. And use vinegar with the water. Read your directions on the package and follow those directions to mix it. And even if your directions don't call for vinegar, add a little bit of vinegar to your dye because it will help it stick to the egg. If you don't have any egg dye at all and you still want egg dye colored eggs, you can use food coloring, just dilute it with some water, or Kool-Aid, and use a whole package of Kool-Aid to about a cup of water with a little bit of vinegar, and that will dye your egg. Another solution, if you don't want to go buy egg dye, you can create natural dye, and there are a lot of links for this. They can be made of anything that leaves a color. So easy natural dyes are strong coffee and strong tea. Other colors can be created by using things like onion skins, beets, red cabbage, turmeric, different kinds of spices. You see some examples over here on the right. You will get a darker, duller color with natural dyes than you do with artificial dyes. The directions are linked in Google Classroom. If you are dyeing the eggs in class, which means you're attending your cohort face-to-face here at school, you use pre-mixed commercial dyes. They have stronger colors than the egg dye kits. Be careful, they will also dye your clothing and stain your hands. So how to dye the eggs? You might want to wear a glove. It could be a rubber glove, a regular COVID glove, whatever. Or use something to hold the egg down because both the blown eggs and the artificial eggs will float in the dye. You place the egg in the dye and you hold it down so that it's submerged and covered by the dye. You rotate it occasionally, and the longer that it is in the dye, the darker the color is going to be. And then you're going to take it out of the dye and check it, and leave it in there for a few minutes. If you don't think it's dark enough, then put it back in. If it is a natural blown egg, because it has holes in it, some water is going to get inside of it. So take it outside and shake it to get the dye and water out of it, and then put it in a safe place to dry on a paper towel in an egg carton. If you're at school, you'll put your egg in a cup and let it dry till the next day. Before you put it away, though, take a minute, photograph it, and upload it so I can give you your points. Okay? Have fun!